Welcome to day one of Dear Dream Foundation's Introduction to Python course. I will be your instructor for today. My name is Linda. And at any point in this in my lesson, if you have any questions, please feel free to just turn your mic on, or if you don't want that, you can type in the chat. But I prefer you guys to just like speak up because I there might be a delay for me to read the like your text in the chat. So yeah. Okay, so let's get started. Um, first of all, before we begin, I would like to talk about why we're learning Python in the first place. So, right now we live in a very technologically advanced world, right? Everyone uses some type of technology. So, for example, you're probably looking at this, you're probably watching me off a laptop or an iPad or a phone, something like that. That's all an example of technology, right? And every day we watch YouTube videos, we text our friends on these devices. But everyone knows how to use a phone or a laptop, right? But I feel like in order to unleash the full like potential of what we can do with these types of technology, we have to know how to code. Because when we know how to code, we can, instead of just using things that other people have built for us, like apps or like other like websites, we can actually build these things ourselves. So here are some examples of what we can do with Python, just like on using Python, right? So right here, over here, um, if you can, you guys can see my screen, right? Please give a
Yeah.
thumbs up if you guys can. Yeah, okay, that's good. So, um, this game over here was an example that I found off the internet of a game made completely using Python, which is really, really impressive. You see, this is like some very complicated graphics and movement, right? And you can fight these things. This is just an example of like what you can do with this language once you are like comfortable with it, right? And also other places that we can use this is, for example, other places where Python is used is like everywhere in our daily lives, right? Like Instagram, Pinterest, Spotify, Dropbox, Uber, Reddit, all these like apps that you use on a daily basis is like a part of them was written or developed using the Python language. So Python is like a very important, not important, but like a very common language to use to make these applications and these games happen, right? Which is why we're learning coding. But you might be asking, like, why specifically we're learning Python? Well, that brings us to the history of and why Python, why like the advantages and because of those advantages is why we're choosing this language to teach you guys. So Python was created in the late 1980s and it was released in 1991. When it was made, the makers tried to focus on code readability and programmer productivity. So what that means is basically Python was developed to be really easy to learn and like write for people. Now, why that is because Python as a language uses a lot of English words in the code. And you'll be able to see that in when we start coding. So there will be things like if something in something is it's not just like random strings of letters. It's like there are actual readable English words in there. And a lot of coding languages actually don't have that. So that's what makes some coding languages super hard because it's like I'm reading so much stuff that and none of it makes sense. But Python is more closer to English, so you'll be able to like hopefully read it a lot better than if you started with another coding language, say C or like C++. Those are just some examples. And another advantage of Python is there's a lot of libraries, and we'll learn about libraries in the future, but they're basically tools that can be used for various tasks. So one we'll be hopefully using in this course is Turtle, which is like a graphics library that can that can help you make games. I don't think this game over here is made with Turtle specifically, but if you're very, very good at Python, you might be able to make something that's close to this. And another advantage of Python, as we've already talked before, is that it's used a lot for games, apps, websites, and even machine learning, right? There's a lot of places that we can use this coding language that we've learned, which is why we're learning it right now. So that's been a lot of talking, and so let's actually move on to actually coding Python. So you might be wondering like where do we code, right? Because we don't just see code floating around on our screen like every single day. Like when I'm opening this PowerPoint, you don't see the code behind this PowerPoint. So where do we write that code? We do that in what's called an IDE, which is an integrated development environment, which sounds very complicated, but it's basically a software that helps programmers develop code, write code more efficiently, and they combine a lot of features into one big program, so you can access all of these. So um, I'll just go over briefly like what they usually have. They usually have a um, they usually have a code editor, which is like here. You can see you can type text in here, you can type code, and you can run it. And they also have a debugger, which we probably won't be using that, but it's just useful to know. It just basically helps programmers debug and stuff. And there's a lot of you can see there's a lot of buttons here, right? There's so many things, like you probably have no idea what these do, and I probably don't even use most of them, which is why we won't be using these two examples. These are two very used examples, used IDEs for programmers. One is VS Code and one is PyCharm, but they have a lot of features. They have so many buttons, and we just won't be using most of them for this course. So instead of these two, what we'll be using for this course is Google Colab. Do you guys have that ready? If not, I will put the link in the chat for you guys. Hang on. Google Colab. Do you guys can you guys do a thumbs up if you guys have Google Colab or know how to access that? If not, I'll just paste the link in the chat. Okay. I sent the link in the chat, so if you guys don't know how to access Google Colab, just click on the link. It will hopefully take you to a page that looks like, God. It'll hopefully take you to a page that looks like this, maybe. Um, please do a thumbs up or like say something in the chat once you've got to this page. Yes. Please put a thumbs up in the chat if you guys have gotten to this page so I know where everyone is. If you need help, just like raise your hand or speak up or type in the chat like help. I can't find it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think most people have got it, right? Okay, so can you guys still see you guys can still see my share screen, right? So you want to press new notebook, the uh the blue button, and it will open a new notebook for you, I think. Yep, it will open a new notebook and you'll see this little text box over here. So you can name that whatever you want, just to save it. Day one. Okay. So once you've gone to this page, we can actually begin to write our first program of the day. So you can just copy exactly what I have for now. This is just for the purposes of demonstrating how an IDE works. So let's write print parentheses and then quotation marks, hello world. So once you have that down, you can click this play button over here and it will run the code for you. It might take a little while to connect to your CPU and stuff. Yep, okay. So once that's run, you can see this little another box pops up with white text and it says hello world. So that's the output of your program. So basically what I wrote here is a function which we will talk about later on, but for now you just need to know that print just means you telling the computer to say something basically. And here you're telling it to say hello world and it said hello world back to you. So this is basically what this program does. And I want everyone to try it out so they know how like IDs work and where to write programs. Okay, you guys got that? Okay.
Sorry, but where do I find
Any questions?
the pro the project page?
Okay. There's no questions. We can move on to variables. Okay, so variables are oh, does someone have a question? Oh, does someone ask a question? I didn't hear, sorry.
How do I get to the project page again?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that?
The project page,
Mhm. Project? Wait, what do you mean project?
like the page you're on currently.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah? Wait, you don't know how to get to it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you see the link I sent in the chat? It's the one above all the here, I can send you again if you want. So you click on that and it should bring you to a page. It should bring you to oh, okay. Do you have it yet? And you should click new document, new project or new document, and then um this will show this thing.
Thank.
Okay. You got it? Okay. Okay, we can move on. We can move on to variables. So, what are variables? Variables, you might have heard of them in math, right? Like X and Y. Um, it's somewhat similar in like Python, but instead of like a problem asking you to solve for what is X, like X might be you can tell a computer directly like what is X. So it's basically containers for data or containers for information. So um it's basically containers for information and you telling the computer to remember like a specific type, like a specific line of information. So for example, you can tell it, oh, remember that x equals 3, which means that which you're basically naming the number 3, you're giving it another name called x. And um and af and then when you're writing the program, you can actually tell the computer, you can ask the computer, like, what is X? And the computer will tell you back, oh, it's 3. So it's basically you telling the computer to remember something. Um, sorry, there's another question in the chat. How come I think this has a play button? Um, it should be here. If it doesn't, oh guys, if you guys don't have like a play button on your side of your code editor, you just need to press plus code and then it'll make a new like section for you guys. So you can type more code in it. Hopefully that resolves your question. We'll move on for now. Like, we'll get back to this after variables. So, continuing back to variables, you can basically name these anything. Like, unlike in math, you usually only name it like X, Y, Z, right? You can name it much more interesting names in Python. You can name it entire words, you can name it entire sentences, although that's probably not a good idea because that's a very long name, and you probably don't want to type that like over and over again every time you want to ask the computer to remember whatever you name like. So, but there are a few rules. So first, they're case sensitive, which means that I'll do a demonstration over here. So if I named my variable, wait, probably don't name a variable. I named my variable hello. Let's say hello equals 1. And I name another variable hello, but without the capital H over here, as you can see. So oh, actually, let's name this 2. So when I say print hello, right? If I say print hello, it'll actually print 2, which is a second variable. So you can see here that, but if I change this to capital H, it'll print 1. So what you can see here is basically hello with a capital H is different from a lowercase. So you need to keep in mind of that because you don't want to accidentally use a variable that doesn't exist. Okay, and you can name your variables all sorts of things, like here, like X or decimal underscore number or like name. These are all like valid variable names. But you can see here, you see like all these variables contain different information, right? So X equals 10, that's like a whole number. But the variable decimal number contains 3.14. And the variable name is Bob. So what does that mean? Why is there so many different uh datas in these variables? So here it brings us to data types. So data types, there are 3 basic data types that you need to know right now. So first is integer, which is basically any whole number. That includes both positive and negative, and it can be really large numbers like 1,000, 10,000, or it can be like -3 over here. Floats are anything with a decimal point. And keep in mind that it's anything with a decimal point. Like 10.0 is not an integer. Even though it's a whole number, 10.0 has a decimal in it. So if it has that decimal point, it's a float. The third one is string. These are a bit different. They're not numbers, they're actually words or sentences. And you need to put them in quotation marks. The quotation marks can be double quotes or single quotes. It doesn't really matter for Python. I usually use double quotes. And there's something special that you can do with these strings, and it's called a multi-line string. So basically, what a multi-line string does is I will do a demonstration over here. So here, let's say S2 is this is a string. Let's make another variable and make it a multi-line string. This Okay. And we want to print both of these to see what they do. Oh God. Okay. So let's print both of these. So S2 is just a normal string. That's not working. I forgot to do that. So S2 is just a normal string. And as you see, when I print the string, it prints on one line, right? And even if I make this like super long, like I type random stuff after this, usually when you go in a Word document, right, it will like it will like once you reach the threshold, it will like do a new line for you, right? Usually when you code, it doesn't do that. If you make the line super long, it will just go on forever. What if you don't want that, right? What if you wanted to put in a paragraph and you didn't want it to go out of the page? Now this is where you use a multi-line string. So basically multi-line strings is you put three quotation marks around it and the computer prints it exactly how you have in the code. So in the code, I have a like a backspace after not backspace like an enter after and that's how it print in the output, right? So it prints this is and then enter multi-line string, so it'll come in two lines. So that's what multi-line strings are for. If you want really long text, you probably want to do that so it doesn't like go out of the page. Okay, so let's say what if you wanted, let's for example, you had an integer 2 and you actually wanted to make it a float for some reason. You wanted to make it a 2.0. How would you do that? So you would actually use conversion function. And there are three that you need to know for now. They are to convert between int, float, and string. So it's very simple. It's just you type, this is just the function. You type whatever number you want to put in, or you could type whatever variable you want to put in into the bracket. So for example, let's make a new code segment. Um, so we have variable one, which is 2, and we want to make that a float for some reason. So we would just need to type float brackets variable one. You input the variable into the function, and the function basically does its work of converting whatever number is contained in variable one into a float. So when we click that, I forgot to print. Oh, it doesn't matter. So it will output 2.0, which means that it's a float now. It's not just a whole number, it's not an integer, it has a decimal number, which means it's a float. We can do we can convert floats between integers too. But one thing you need to keep in mind is computers don't do rounding, or you need another function for it to round. When you're converting a float to an integer, it's just like it's it's going to like cut off whatever's after the decimal point. So let's do an example to make this more clear. So let's for example, we have 4.98. That's like almost 5, right? If you're asking a person like to convert 4.98 to a like a whole number, they would say like, oh, it's 5, right? But the computer doesn't like it doesn't do it that way. So when you convert when you do int, which means you're converting variable 1 to an integer, when you click that, it tells you it's 4. So basically what it's doing is taking the decimal point and then like cutting it right there and throwing whatever is behind that into like the void. So it's gone. So it's just 4. So you need to keep in mind that computers don't round. Okay. And another thing is you can't convert strings to integers or floats. Well, there is technically a way to do it, but it's really complicated. So, and we're probably not going to use it. So, so um, just you can't convert a string to an integer and a float, and the reason is that words aren't really numbers. Like you can't, like yeah, hello. You can't really. If I say hello and I'm asking you to convert that to numbers, like you don't really know what the numbers of hello is. So you can't convert from string to integers or floats. But you can convert integers or floats to strings. They'll still be numbers. They'll look the same, but they'll just be a different data type. It's just a string instead of an integer or a float. So what can we do with, these data types and these variables? Like all these numbers, like we're storing them, but what are we gonna do? Right, so that brings us to operations. Right now I'm just talking about number operations. So like, um, the computer can, I mean, everyone knows that computers like do calculations really quickly, right? So it's very useful to know these operations, these number operations, so you can make really complicated. Well, no, you can add or like divide really large numbers like very quickly. So these are just all the normal things you see in math, right? Sum, difference, product, quotient, remainder, power. Like these are normal math operations. So these basically how you do these are you just type it in, right? You can I'm gonna add a new thing. So you can say 3 plus 5. You can just let me just print. Okay. Print 3 plus 5. That should work, right? Yeah, so you can just say print 3 plus 5. So you're asking the computer to print to you, to print in the output whatever the answer to 3 plus 5 is, and it says 8, right? And you can do this with all different types of operations. You can say 3 minus 5, that will give us -2. 3 times 5, it will be an asterisk because there's no multiplication sign on the computer, and it'll give you 15. 3 divided by 5. I think that will give us a float. Yeah, that'll give us a float. 3 divided by 5 is 0.6, so there's a rounding there. And what else? You can also do a remainder or modulus. So modulus is basically it gives you the remainder. So 10 modulus 3 will give you 1. Because when you divide 10 by 3, there's one remainder, right? There 3 can go into 10 3 times and there's one left. And you can also do power. So 10 to the power of 3 will be 1,000. So you can do all these operations in Python. These are very simple, but you can build them up to do longer like equations and stuff. So these are very like useful later on. Okay, that's been a lot of talking, and I'm sure that you guys are ready to code now. So I have a brief exercise. So here are 6 variables. I will copy and paste these in the chat. So what I want you to do is find the average to these 6 numbers, not using idle. Let's fix that. Okay, find the average of these numbers using Google Colab. Don't use the variables directly. What I mean by that is don't do like 10 plus 11.05. Do like A plus B, like that. So I want you guys to find the average of these numbers and don't use the numbers, use the variables. So I want you guys to use the operations and these numbers to find the average. Okay. Do you guys have any questions before we go on to the exercise? And after, I'll give you guys, is 5 minutes enough? I'll give you guys 5 minutes for this. We'll see how we go. If a lot of people give me their answer, I will just like finish earlier. But once you're finished, please like give me a direct message of your code so I can like see how people are doing. Don't like paste in the public chat so like everyone knows. No, only tell me the answer. Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you guys 5 minutes for that. And if you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask. Okay, you guys are super good at this. There are like I already got like a lot of answers. So I'll move on to the solution if um yeah, I'll just move on to the solution actually. If there are people who still haven't got it, I can show them the answer. And I'll explain this code for those who don't understand. So basically you just input all these variables, right? A, B, C, D, and E and F. So you want to use a print statement probably so you can see your answer. Oh, not a string. So you want to add all these together, right? A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus right? Do you guys have questions? I hear some. No? Okay. So A plus C plus D plus E plus F. So these are the sum of all these values, right? And you want to divide by how many there are. So you use the addition operator here and you use the division operator to divide by 6. And I think that should be it. And you print that and the answer should be 192. I think some people might have forgotten to put the parentheses here, and you definitely want to do that because just like in math, whatever you put in the parentheses, you do first, right? If you don't put the parentheses, it'll just be doing a plus b plus c plus d plus e, and then dividing f by 16 and then adding that. So that will be give you a different answer. So just in math, you still need to use parentheses to do like to make sure the order of operations is correct. Okay. Um, yeah, so that should be the exercise. I'll actually put this in the chat for you guys if um no, I didn't send it. Hang on. I'll put the answer in the chat for you guys if you guys want to like study upon that a bit more if you didn't really understand. But for now we have a 10-minute break to go get some water or some snacks. And we'll meet back here in 10 minutes. So that will be the 45th minute of the hour. Okay. Okay. So now that the break is over, we'll move on to some more complicated coding. So um like we've done what we've done before is mostly just writing like one line of code, right? So for example, here it's just one line, like print plus A, B, C, D, and E and F and divide by 6. So from now on, we'll get to more complicated coding. And with that comes more things that you need to keep in your mind while you code. So I will actually copy and paste this into Google Colab so you guys can see this better. Okay, it's not copy and pasting. That's fine. Um, so you don't need to know what these are. This is just what's called a function, but we'll get to that more in like day 2 and 3. This is just an example to show you what indentation is. And indentation will become very, very, very important as you continue to code because um without indentation, the computer will get very, very confused about what you're trying to say to it, basically. So this here, this is a conditional statement, which we'll explain in a few minutes. But um you can pretty much read this, right? So if true, this will print this is inside the if block. And this is inside the if block because it's indented inside the if. So this entire thing here that I've highlighted is indented inside the example function. And this print statement is indented inside the if true line. And this line here is indented inside the else line. So basically what that's telling the computer to do is only print this is inside the if block if it's true. But if you remove this indentation, the computer will understand it completely differently. It'll go look at this and be like, oh, there's nothing inside the if true line. There's nothing indented under that. So it's just gonna print this is inside the if block right away because it thinks it's a part of the function and it'll just do it. So indentations are really, really important for computers to understand where everything is. You need to do it in a specific structure. So how do you do indentation? You basically press tab, or some people do 4 spaces in Python. This is like the convention is you do 4 spaces for every single indentation level. So yeah, and every time you go in a level, you need to press a tab another time or press 4 spaces another time. So that's indentation. And these here are comments. So comments are basically telling the computer to ignore whatever you wrote there. So I will do an example. So let's say print. Let's use our example from below above hello world. And we will make this a comment actually. Where's my hash key? Oh. Say print Comments. Okay, so what do you guys think will happen when I execute this code? So basically, keeping in mind that the comment is basically telling the computer to just ignore that. What do you guys think will happen after I execute this code? Yeah, so someone said that the comment won't be printed, so this is very, very correct. If we say this, it will just say hello world. Nothing will happen, right? But if we delete the comment, it will print both lines, hopefully. Yep, it'll print both lines. So comments are used, for example, to basically make a note to yourself or other people that are collaborating with you on the project, on whatever code you're doing, to say, oh, what I'm doing here is, for example, for next to this print statement, I can say, I can make a comment saying, say hello world. So when other people are reading this, they can just read the comment and be like, oh, that's the print statement to say hello world, right? They can understand it right away. When you're writing code that's like 400, 500 lines long, which you will definitely get to do like later if you learn more Python, your code will get super, super long. Um, Once you start to do that without comments, things can get really, really messy really fast. You don't know what this means. Like, for example, you were coding something and 3 months later you come back, you look at your code and you're like, what is going on? I have no idea what any of this is saying. So when you have comments, that problem gets resolved, right? You just look at your comments and you're like, oh, right, that's the function to read the image or whatever. You can just understand right away. And so that makes everything so much easier. So it's a very, very good practice to write comments as you're going through the code, just to keep notes yourself. And also, especially if you're collaborating with other people on a project, if you don't put comments, people will come into your code doc and be like, what is this person writing? I have no idea. And if you have comments, they'll be much less confused and they'll probably thank you for leaving comments so that they understand your code better. So yeah, it's a very, very good habit to leave comments as you're going. And you can also use comments to write what's called a pseudocode, which is you basically plan your code, your logic of your code before you start coding. You can use this for very big projects. We'll get to do a project later in this course. So you'll probably need your pseudocode then, but you basically just write in like normal English, normal words like first open a file, and then you go to the next line, read file, like that, and then find average of numbers, like that. If you, for example, you're trying to extract an average of numbers from a file, that would be something like your pseudocode. And you would, and then like as you're coding, you can refer back to your pseudocode for your general logic, and that makes your work process probably a lot faster than just thinking about it as you're going and then coding and then thinking about the logic and then coding. It makes it very, very confusing if you're trying to like multitask. So yeah, that's basically what comments are. And you probably there's a very high chance that you'll use them a lot, and also indentation. Please keep indentation in mind. If you don't, there'll be a lot of errors. Okay, so that's basically just the um the things to keep in mind while you're coding. So now we get on to logic. So computers have the special variable called a Boolean. So a Boolean only has two values. Instead of like variables, you can assign them anything, you can assign them strings or like numbers. Booleans, just two variables. Not two variables, two values, true or false. That's it. So um you can check for the Boolean of a variable using the bool function, which I will demonstrate here. So if I make a variable called a and I make it true, um please make sure, as I said at the beginning of this course, when you're naming things in Python or you're typing things in Python, the capitalization matters. So Booleans, they have a capital, so please keep that in mind. Um, and you can check for the value, the Boolean value of this function. I mean, this variable a. Let's, for example, you couldn't see this. right? You would use bool A to check. Oh, and it'll print out true because A is true, right? So this is basically how you check for booleans, and this will you'll probably get to use this. This might seem like pretty useless now, but when you write more complicated code, you'll probably need to use this for things like checking if something is true or checking if something is false. You need to use this. Okay, so what can we do with these Boolean values? Like true or false by themselves don't really mean anything. They're just two values. You can't really do anything with them. So we use comparison operators. So the first one is equal to. Now it's very important to keep in mind that this is not math, this is programming. So it's a little bit different than what we would do in math. So in math, you have two equations and you have one equal sign in the middle to say that they're equal, right? But in programming, it's one equal sign actually means just telling the computer straight up, this side is equal to that side. Like you take the value of this side and you assign it to whatever's on the side, the variable on the side. So you can't do that for comparison. When you need to compare if two things are equal, you use two equal signs. So x is equal to y means like checking if the Boolean value of x is equal to y, or like checking the value of x is equal to y. So we can do a demonstration here. Like for example, x equals 3 is just you make x 3, right? But if you check x equal to 3, it's checking that if x, the variable x that we've already assigned, right? We've assigned the variable x a number, the value of 3 here. So we're checking if x is equal to 3, and hopefully that will output true, right? Because we assigned x is equal to 3 here, and we ask in the next line, is x equal to 3? And it says true, which is yes. And we can also use not equal to, which is an exclamation mark and an equal sign. So here is asking if x is not equal to y. So if x was 3 and y was 5, that would be true. But if x was 3 and y was also 3, it would actually be false, right? Do you guys are you guys understanding like the logic? Not equal to is like, yeah. It makes, I feel like for me, it makes it a lot easier if I say it out loud. So like x is not equal to y, and if it's not equal, it's true. Like that. If I don't say it out loud, like I kind of get confused. Okay, and we move on to greater than. This is like just like normal math. Greater than, like if x is greater than y, then it outputs true. If x is less than y, it outputs false. Less than, here we just use a less than sign. If x is less than y, it outputs true. If x is greater than y, it outputs false, right? Greater than or equal to, you just put a greater sign and an equal sign after, and it works the same as greater than, where if it's true, it says true, and if it's false, it says false. So that's basically the comparison operators, is if the statement is true, it says true. If it's false, it says false. Right? But these are just very, very, like these are pretty basic. These are only like you can only, like for right now, using the knowledge that we have, we can only use these individually, right? But what if we didn't want to use it individually? What if we wanted to have like two two different situations we wanted to satisfy? So now we need like logical operators. So these are and, or not. So and basically outputs true only if both of the statements are true. Or outputs, yeah, and outputs true only if both of these are true. So if x is larger than 5 and x is less than 10, it's it says true. So what would be true in this case? Like if x equals 7, it would output true. But if x is like 11, then it would be false because x is not less than 10. So only one situation is true, so output false. Or is if either of these are true, it will output true. So if x is in this example, if x is greater than 5 or x is less than 3, it'll output true. So what will output true is like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 6 up to infinity will all output true. And 2 to negative infinity will all output true as well. So the only numbers that will not output true in this OR statement would be 5, 4, and 3. And the not statement is basically an inverts whatever original Boolean value you got. So basically, in this example, it says not x is greater than 5. So let's say if x was 6. I'll probably demonstrate this so it's more clear. So let's say x was 6, not x was greater than 5, right? So normally if we didn't have the not, if we just had x is greater than 5, it would say true, right? Because x is greater, 6 is greater than 5. But does anyone want to take a guess like what the not statement does when we execute this?
I think it'll say false.
It'll say false. Let's see. Yeah, it'll say false because it inverse whatever value you have, right? So 6 is greater than 5, but it's saying no, it's not true. So it's false now. So basically just takes the opposite. Okay, I think you guys have a pretty good idea of what this is. You guys are you guys are doing really good. So let's do this exercise over here. So this thing. I want you guys to use your logic to figure out the answer to this first, and after you put the answer to me in the chat, you guys can write this in your like code editor, so you guys can actually check the answer of the computer. But first, I want you guys to think about it using like your brain, and then just predicting what the computer will say. And I want you guys to send the answer to me in the chat. Okay, I'll give you guys 3 we'll see how we go. I'll give you guys like 3 minutes, 5 minutes ish. Okay, we've gotten a lot of answers, so I'll go over this for those if there are people who still need a little bit of help. So we have 2 variables here. The first one has a Boolean value of true. The A has a A has a Boolean value of true, and B has a Boolean value of false. So first we use the and operator on A and B. So A is true and B is false. If we remember here, the AND operator is only true if both statements are true. And B is false, right? So using the AND operator, after you print the variable result, well, first the result will be assigned, the variable result will be assigned false because A and B outputs false because one of these conditions is false. So it'll print false. So you'll see false on your screen. And the second uses the OR operator. And remember here, OR is true if one of these are true. And A is true, so OR would output true. And after you print the result, it will print true using the not operator. And now we use the not operator on A, and A is true. So the inverse of true is false, and we will assign the value of false to result, and we print that, and it will print false. We can check this using our code editor if this actually decides to copy. Okay, nope. I'll just write this real quick, actually. I want to like check at using the actual computer so I know I am correct for sure. result equals A and B. Did I print one? Yep. And okay, so I think that should be the code and we can run it. And so the computer says the answer is false, true, false. And I think most people have got it. Oh, someone wants me to explain the A or B. So I'll go over that again. So A or B, or basically means that it's true as long as one of the Boolean values is true. So in the example here, A is true, right? And B is false. But it doesn't matter if B is true or false because A is already true. So one of these values is already equal to true, so it will output true, right? Just think of it in the normal definition of or, right? Or is like if one of these are true, it's true, right? So yeah, the same goes for the computer. Do you understand? Does everyone understand the solution? Does anyone need me to go over it again? Please give us thumbs up in the chat or just like in your camera if you understand. Or just nod. Yep. Yep. Okay. I think most people are fine, right? Okay. Um, I have some exercises for you guys that you guys can do on this. Um, I have another exercise that I'll paste in the chat so you guys can understand this concept a little bit more because this might be a little bit difficult for some people. And you'll probably need to use this a lot in the future as well. So you probably want to get a very solid understanding before you move on. So the link is in the chat. Once you open it, it should look like this. If you guys can see that, it should look like this. So these are the instructions, and you can type code here, right? I want you guys to write this yourself. Please don't click the show solution, then copy the answer. I want you guys to do this yourself and then copy and paste your code to me in the chat so I can see how you guys are doing with this. Because this might be a little bit harder than what we've done here since it actually requires you to write the code yourself. Okay. If you guys have problems opening the link, um if you guys have problems opening the link, you guys can tell me. Yeah, so please go ahead and do this exercise and we'll see how you guys go. I'll give you guys 5 minutes for now. If you guys need more time, I'll give you more time, but we'll just see how many people are finished after 5 minutes. I'll give you guys um a hint. Oh, what you guys will need in this exercise that I haven't really taught is the return function. So, or you can just use print, honestly. Or, yeah, I think for this for this website to register your answer as correct, you need to use the return function. So the return function is just it basically returns a value. It just gives you back the value, but it's not print. It's a little bit different from print. Print is it like printing it on the screen, like the terminal, but return is just it gives you back a value, but you can't like necessarily see it every time, if that makes sense. But we might get to that a little bit more in later lessons. Yeah, but basically here you want to do return. You'll need this thing. right? Just think of it as print. Just think of it as print for now. But instead of print, you use return space and then whatever you want to put after. Right. So it's basically asking, um, uh, it's basically asking if we're sleeping in. That's the question. So we only sleep in if it's not a weekday or vacation. And yeah, that's the so if it is a weekday or vacation, you return. Okay. Yeah, I see people have already I see someone has the answer. Okay. Let's actually this is a little bit difficult for now. Um let's do something else right now. Let's move on and we'll come back to this later. Okay. Um we'll go through conditional statements since I don't think most of you guys have done that. And I think I just realized that you might need this for this exercise. You don't necessarily need it, but it's the logic is more clear if you use conditional statements. So we'll go through that first and then we'll come back to this exercise. Can you guys see my PowerPoint? Yes? Okay, we'll go through conditional statements so this exercise is more clear because my answer is a little bit different from the answer in the exercise. I thought we didn't need conditional statements, but we do. So, let's go through these first. So, conditional statements is something that is just it's basically the it's like a decision maker for your program. We don't always want your program to do like exactly one thing, no matter what happens, right? You want it to respond to different situations dynamically. So this is where conditional statements come in. So they basically make your program smart and adjust itself according to the situation. It's like how we make decisions in real life, but for a computer. So, for example, this is just a very general example. If you wanted your program to decide what you were going to wear today, so it might use an if statement, like here, which is like asking a question. The question can be anything that you can check, like, is it raining outside? If the answer is yes, if the computer like if it has eyes and it saw that it's raining outside, it will say yes, and it will output true in Python, which is yes. And the program will follow your instructions for that situation, like telling you to wear rain boots and bring an umbrella. But if the answer is if the computer somehow looks outside and sees, oh, there's a sun, it's sunny outside, it will say like false or like no. And it will ignore the instructions in the if statement and move on. So so I'll write this example so it's more clear here. So let's say this is this is not like how code works. This is not like normal code, but it's just a general like actually let's say raining outside. Raining outside is true. Let's say today it is raining outside. I forgot to capitalize that. Raining outside is true. So you ask if if the computer you ask the computer raining outside, like is it true? Right? You ask, is it raining outside? And if it is, you print bring umbrella, right? So if you run this and raining outside is true, right? You ask the computer, is it raining outside? It's like it checks and it's like, yeah, it's true. So print bring an umbrella. But if it's false, say if it's clear outside and this was false, It'll check and it'll do nothing because like it will ignore this entire thing, right? But what if we wanted it to do something? We didn't want it to just like do nothing, right? Let's say if it was not raining outside, we want it to say, oh, just wear normal clothes, like something like that. So now we will need something called a else statement, which you can add after the if statement, like for example here. We can say else. Now we don't need to write anything here because else just means like it's like a backup. It's a backup for if nothing executes. You just say else print wear normal clothes like this. So now, I want you guys to take a guess. If I click run, what will happen? What will the computer say to this program if I click run? Okay, you guys not see my screen actually? Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Oh, I am screen sharing. Yeah, that's fine. So this here, raining outside is false. So what will the computer output if I executed this code? What will it tell me? If it's sunny outside, what will it tell me? I want to get a few answers in the chat. Please feel free to put your answers. We got one answer so far. Is anyone else wanting to? Yeah, so a lot of people are saying wear normal clothes. So let's see what happens. Yeah, so it's saying wear normal clothes. Basically, what it's doing here is it's seeing, oh, it's sunny outside. It's false. Raining is false. So it will look at this if statement, but the if statement says it's true. So if this is true, and the computer is like, oh, it's not true. So it ignores this entire thing to the computer. This is basically gone. It just does this. It's basically, it doesn't see this anymore. And it goes to else and it prints where normal close, right? So that's just like a word example. You can also do these with numbers, like here. You can also do these with comparisons with numbers. So here, when we use an else statement, so first we make x equal to 10. And if x is larger than 5, it prints x is greater than 5. If it's not, then x is less than 5. So for this example, what will the computer print? Do you guys want to put your answers in the chat? This number example here, this might be a little bit less straightforward than the other one, but please put your answers in the chat to what the computer will say to what the computer will print to after I write this program in the code editor. I'm gonna give you guys a hint. It's going to be a sentence, not like a Boolean value. It's going to be a sentence. Yeah, so a lot of people are getting it. So it's going to say x is greater than 5 because in this case, x is equal to 10 and this is already true. So it executes, it runs this part. It says this part first before it says this. So it just won't say this altogether because you don't need the backup if the first plan is already like working, right? You don't use your backup plan if your first plan is working. So that's just the if else statements and how you can use them together. But let's say, but now we move on to elif statements, which is a little bit different. So it's like another question you can ask the computer only if the first one is already wrong. So it works by the program checking the first statement like before. So for example, this example, x is equal to 10, and if x is greater than 15. So first the computer asks, is x greater than 15? It's not, right? 10 is less than 15, so it ignores that. So what it does is it moves on to the elif statement now. It doesn't move on to the else right away. It goes to the elif statement. And it asks again, is x greater than 5, which is yes, right? So it'll do whatever is inside this, like this, whatever is indented inside the elif statement. But you know how you realize how the computer says x is greater than 5 but not greater than 15. So why does it say that? Well, technically I made it say that, but that statement is true. Why is it true? It's because it only goes, remember, it only goes to the elif statement if the if statement already like failed, if it's not true. So we know for a fact that x is not greater than 15. But if the elif statement executed, which means if the elif statement is true, then it means that x is greater than 5. So we just combine those together and we know that x is greater than 5, x is greater than 5, but not greater than 15. What you can do with elif statements is you can have like a lot of them. Oh, we have a question. So elif is also a backup, but higher in line than else. Yeah. So elif is also, yeah. So your understanding is correct. So elif is also a backup. The else is just like everything has failed. We go to the ultimate backup plan now. That's like what else is if you think about it. Elif is a little bit different. You can't use else's like 10 times, right? There's only one else, but you can use elif's like however many times you want. You can have 10 of these. You can have if x is greater than 3. You can have like you can just like copy and paste this down below. Like, oh, that is not okay. You can have a lot of these. This is just like you can keep going. You can basically just do that. Keep going. And you can basically make a lot of different situations with elif. So yeah, that's basically what elif is for. It's basically just a plan that's higher than else. But there's also like a different type of statement. You can also use nested if statements or nested conditionals. You can say this is another way of doing elif is so here. This is like the example before, but we use two ifs instead of an elif. So if x is greater than 5, if that's oh wait, no, no, my bad. This is not the different of ignore what I said before. This is not like elif. This is basically you want to satisfy if two conditions are true. So remember when we said Boolean, like the and operator over here, if x is greater than 5 and x is less than 10, right? We can do the same thing, but just in a different way using conditional statements. So if x is greater than 5 and x is less than 10. So basically what this does is it checks if x is greater than 5. If it's not greater than 5, we'll just do nothing. There's no else statement here. There's no backup plan. It will just be blank, right? But if x is greater than 5, it will go to the next line. And the next line asks you to check again if x is less than 10. And if that's not true, it just does nothing, right? But if it is true, it will print if x is greater than 5 and less than 10. So basically, you can also write this as um you can basically write this as another and statement. So x is greater than 5 and x is less than 10 is the same thing. Right. So it'll be the same thing. These two, ignore the capital letter over here, but these two are the same thing. These are just different ways of doing the same thing, and there's a lot of ways to approach the same answer in coding. So it just depends on which one you prefer, I guess. It's a matter of like personal logic and which makes the most sense to you. But just as an extra thing is I've provided this example if you guys wanted to use that instead of, the and statement. So yeah, that's pretty much like all the essential information that you'll need to go through our exercise and the homework. So now we'll go back to the coding back exercise and hopefully that will make a little bit more sense to you guys after we've done the conditional. I don't want to show solution. But hopefully this will make a little bit more sense after you guys have done the conditional. So how about you guys try this coding bag exercise right now? I'll put the link in the chat again. And you guys can try this out and hopefully it'll make more sense. So I'll give you guys 5 minutes for that and we'll see how we go. And please put your code answers in the chat to me so I can check how many people are finished and how you guys are doing. And after 5, we'll see how we go. But I'm saying like after 5 minutes, we'll meet up again and we'll check how we're doing. I'll go over the answers for those who don't understand. Okay. You guys can move on to the exercise. Good luck. Oh, and also remember to use the return statement that I told you guys about. So, right, return, you can use return true, which will just like, it's basically like print true. You guys think of it as print true, but it's a little bit different. We'll probably go through that more when we get to like functions and stuff. But I won't go into too much detail here, just in case if I confuse people. So you can use these two statements if you guys need it. And I'll leave that there. Okay, I think we can go to the solution. I think I think everyone who has posted their solutions to me has got it right. So basically it's asking here that we're supposed to return true. It's basically asking, do we sleep in, right? True or false, do we sleep in? So we only sleep in if it's not a weekday or we're on vacation. So we just type that in Python. So we ask if not, right? Not, right? Weekday or vacation, right? We want to say if it's not weekday or vacation, and we want to indent that because or else it's going to think that it's not inside the if statement, but we want it to be inside the if statement, right? So we want to return true, right? And if it is a weekday or it's not a vacation, so that's basically every other situation that we could possibly have, we return false if we don't sleep in, right? Does this make sense to everyone? Does anyone have any questions or such about the situation? We'll check this first. Hopefully that works. Okay. What? A valid syntax line to not. Oh, I forgot the colon. My bad. Okay, yeah, that works now. That works now. I forgot the colon. Remember the colon, guys. But yeah, so this is you basically just read this. If it's not a weekday or a vacation, return true. This is yeah. But there's also another solution for people who are a little bit more advanced or have like different logic. So you can also just say return. This will just print the value of, or just return the value of not weekday, weekday or vacation. So we don't actually need a if else statement for this because there's only two Boolean values, right? So this will just print out the Boolean value of this. So this is basically equal to this. I think probably. Just indented it. I keep forgetting. Yeah, so this is the same thing. But this is a little bit like different logically, so this might be a little bit confusing for some people. I'll just explain it again for some people who are a little bit more like that need a little bit more understanding. So the question here is asking if we are sleeping in or not. So it wants us to return a value of true or false about sleeping in. So we want to check if it's not a weekday. So here we sleep in if it's not a weekday or we're on vacation. So basically this is made up by a not statement and an or, like a not conditional and not conditional, like a not statement and an or statement. So it will output true if one of these are true. So either we are not on a weekday, we're on a weekend, or we're on vacation. And we use a not here because that's what it says. We want. Oh, we're having some issues. If not weekday or vacation. Okay. Um. Uh. For those whose code seems to be the same as mine but don't work, you guys probably want to check if you have the correct indentation. Like you want to make sure that this entire thing is indented inside this line, the first line. You want to make sure everything's indented correctly. And it should work technically. If you're having problems, and if you're having problems with your code that you can't seem to resolve, do you mind like sharing your screen so I can see more clearly your problems? Okay, I'll check share screen. But wait, hang on. Um, for those who've already finished and like understand this completely, move on to the next problem, which will be the second problem we'll be doing, probably the last one. But move on to this problem. It's similar to the first one. It's still dealing with booleans and if else statements. But you'll be using like the and or statements more in this one. Let me try this one. Oh, that's 13. Okay. Okay, so please move on to if you guys are finished with sleep in, please move on to the monkey trouble one. Posted the link in the chat and we'll take another 5 minutes for this. If you guys are still having problems with the first exercise, feel free to just like text me in the chat. Okay. Um, so I think a lot of people are having problems with indentation. So I'll go over that real quick. So let's go back to the sleep in example for now. So for the sleep in, right? When you just type it normally, it's gonna look like this, right? No indents, just it will be just 5 lines, right? But you want to keep in mind that you want to keep everything in first line, like this function. We'll talk about functions in a later lesson, but we want to keep everything in the function. So we want to indent these once, just every single line want to indent it once. And then we think about it, and right, we want the return function, we want the return true to be inside the if. So we want the computer to only do the return true if the if statement is true. So we indent that once again, so it only executes if the if statement is true. And for the else, we do the same. So we want to indent so basically we indent the return, like we indent the return lines twice and the if and else once. So I think that will hopefully resolve a lot of people's problems. Right, you just want to make sure your indentation is right so the computer knows that this is inside this line and this is inside this line. Hopefully that resolves your issue for the sleep in. We have a few answers for monkey trouble, but not a lot. Do you guys want me to go? I'll go over the answer. So, we read the question. We have two monkeys, A and B, and we have two parameters, A smile and B smile, to indicate if each is smiling. So A smile and B smile are like booleans, right? So we are in trouble if both of them are smiling, or if either of them are smiling. Neither of them are smiling. Return true if we are in trouble. So we want to know. So basically, from the instructions, it's basically saying we want to know if we're in trouble or not, right? So if they are both smiling, so if A smile is true and B smile is true, right? If these are both true, right, because this is an and statement, we are in trouble. Return true, right? You guys get that? And we can use another if statement here. Oh, I forgot to use the not, my bad. If A is not smiling and B is not smiling, we are also in trouble. So we will return true again. And if both of these are not true, we return false. Right? Hopefully that works. Let's check. Yep, so that works. Is this similar to what everyone got? Or if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to say something. But basically, essentially, what we've done is we've checked if A and B are both smiling, then we're in trouble. We return true. And we check again. We use another if statement to check if both of these are not smiling, then we return true because we're in trouble if they're both smiling, or else we just return false because all the other situations means we're not in trouble. Right? Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, I don't see any raised hands or questions in the chat, so I will assume that we're good, right? We're good? Oh. Oh, okay, we're a little bit confused on the elif statement. So we don't want to use the elif statement here, even though we can use elif statement multiple times, but we don't want to use it here because elif statement, remember, elif statements only execute if the if statement is not true. So only if the if statement has already failed. But actually, we can probably use an elif here. Yeah, we can use an elif here as well, but I just used two ifs. So if elif is basically saying if this already failed, so if A smile and B smile is already not true, right? We move on to this one. But we can also just, if it will still work. Yeah, I don't really use Ellis a lot, but you can use Ellis multiple times, but you don't need to use it multiple times here because there's only like 3 situations max, right? Okay, Elif is the one, to answer your question, Elif is the one you can use multiple times. Else, just use it once. You don't use else multiple times. You can also use if multiple times if you want as well. But yeah. We're having some troubles with code. I'll see. Oh, to answer your question, to resolve your code issue, you spelled elif with 2 L's, you only need 1. I think that should work. No? Okay. If and not. Oh, line 2, return true. Line 2, if A smile and B smile. Oh, and you forgot an underscore under B smile, and you need that underscore. So, um, to resolve your question, you are missing a underscore in B smile on the second line. You need that, or else it will think that it's a different function and it will get really confused. And also, you are spelling Elif with two L's. You only need one. It's ELIF. If you retype that, I think it should be fine. Wait. Oh, I know this. Expect. And also, you need to indent your if statement. So you need to indent it once to make sure that the if statement is also inside the function. Yeah, so it'll work like this. You just need an indent and a underscore and another not statement here. So this should be your code. I will paste this code in the chat if you guys need to test it out yourself. Okay, so I think we can move on to the introduction, the homework. So this will be your guys' homework for if you guys find this easy, just like tell me and I'll give you guys like harder work. But this should be your homework for this class. So this is an exercise. Let me delete this. You guys probably don't need this. This is an exercise to make a simple calculator for addition and subtraction. Originally, I was gonna provide you guys with the code for the first part, but I think you guys are doing really, really well, and I believe that you guys can do this like entire thing by yourselves. So this is basically what you want to do, or your pseudocode. So first, you need to use a input function to get the numbers and the operation type. So I'll demonstrate the input function for you guys here. So it's basically this, and you can say input oh, I can't spell, what's your name? And I think that should, yeah. So that will basically summon a text box for the user to type in, and it will ask the question in this bracket, like, what's your name? And you can type, my name is Linda, and press enter, and it will basically like register that in the computer. So you want to use this to ask a question. So here in this exercise, you want to get the numbers and the operation type. So you want to use input like input first number like that. First number 1, right? And the computer will remember that, and you can use that to do all sorts of things. So yeah. So this will be your homework. And if you guys have questions, feel free to ask in the next 6 minutes before class ends. But I want you guys to get started on this homework. And if you guys finish early, I'll like come up with new homework for you guys. But for now, please work on the simple calculator for addition and subtraction. And the instructions are here. I'll just provide an example of how to use the input function. Like yeah, please write your homework on Google Colab. That's like the code editor we're using for this course. And we'll go over in next class. So I want you guys to just basically have it finished before we go over it next class. Okay, please get started, and if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. This can be a little bit complicated, but I trust that you guys will figure it out. Or if you guys are super confused, you can just wait until next class for the instructor to explain it. But please at least make an attempt.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.